Just warming up.
All right, great. It's fun. We're all getting started with a laugh. All right, live stream coming on now too in a moment. Thanks for joining us for Cosmic Conversation, and I'm getting the Facebook Live all up and running. All right, here we go. Thanks so much for joining us here for Cosmic Conversation. The three of us are going to be chatting for the next couple of hours with input from our audience. We have people joining us in the group to have cosmic conversation about all kinds of different things. We'll all go around and introduce who we are and what we do as a practice, and we'll all share a bit about what motivated us to come have cosmic conversation together. Maybe I'll just turn it over to Kai and then Crystal, and we'll just wander around and I'll share about me and we'll talk about what this is and what we're doing. You can get tickets at Humanitix. There's a link right here in the video. If you're on Facebook right now, you want to join us in Zoom, you'll have a chance to ask us some general questions as part of the conversation and also an opportunity to ask any personal questions that you want of the panel, and that's a different fee. All right. Yeah, it's $2 to $4 to join us here in Zoom. All right, Kai, go ahead. Tell us about who you are and what you do and like what motivated you to want to have cosmic conversation together.
So I'm Kai. I'm a Hawaiian Kahuna, which is the Hawaiian version of a shaman. And I'm an author, mentor, speaker. I've been doing, this type of stuff, supernatural, occults, all of it from the time I was a kid. And so what's nice for me is as an energy healer is I get to play with energy. I get to experiment with things. And it's always nice for me to be able to kind of have a conversation with other people who understand energy the way I do to like, hey, have you tried this? Do you know what that is? Have you, just like being able to experiment with different things. And so as far as having these cosmic conversations, like Crystal and I have them all the time at the shows because we sit near each other and we spend the day in between, doing things with our clients, having these conversations. And I thought, we should be having this conversation with more people because there's more to learn. There's more to teach, there's more to share, there's just more for us. And so that's why I was like, let's just do this. Let's just see who shows up and let's have this conversation about anything we want related to the metaphysical community.
Great. And Crystal, and I'm sending the Zoom link to more people that are signing up.
Good. That's great. Hi, I'm Crystal Novak. I'm a psychic reader, conscious channel, and I also do energy work. And I've been doing this for over 40 years. Um, so as Kai has mentioned, us as practitioners, if we're sitting close enough, and things are a little slow, then we'll lean over and start having conversations. Um, and we never know what the conversation is going to be about. It could be like, I came in today and I had this question. I'm like, I want to ask Kai about this. And so I say, hey, Kai, blah, 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 blah. And Kai goes, oh, yeah. She'll respond back. And then it just kind of snowballs and we just follow that trail and we start talking about, sometimes it's like, where did you get that information from? Or like I got exposed to a different style of teaching than Kai did. Kai is a Kahuna, and so she had it's an ancestral learning, if I'm saying this right, Kai. So she studied things differently than how I got trained and studied things differently. And so it's like comparing notes. Um, and I like it because it gives me new ways to think about stuff. It gives me new ideas, and I can also have new tools to use. Um, and I always like learning new stuff. So I really enjoy it. So that's how we landed on this idea of also our clients come up and ask us questions. So this is a great format here that we can start this going, and then you as the audience can listen and see how it speaks to you. And you can ask us questions about what we're talking about. So that's what we're hoping to do here, make this a regular thing.
Great timing. I just got everything all emailed out to everybody and texted out to everybody. So I'm Laureli Shimayo. I'm an intuitive eye reader, body psychology coach, matchmaker, and I run the MeWe Fairs events. And I know I love when I get to be in conversation with you, Crystal and Kai. We talk about all kinds of great things. I feel like I learn so much from the insight that you share of what you experience, which is different than what I do. And, I have all kinds of different experiences than you do and perceptions as well. And it's really great, I think, when a group of us get together and sort of like all the perspectives coming in, like there's a swirling of deeper knowing that happens from the different perspectives that we bring. So I love the idea of bringing this out to others. There are lots of other practitioners that are landing in the audience right now. So I want to have this as be a broader conversation in some ways with other practitioners and other people that are interested in these kinds of topics. And it's just an opportunity to have some general conversation. I appreciate those of you that have joined, even though we have, like an itty bitty price tag on this. It's just a way of helping it be a bit of a safer container, and then also a more focused container of people that really want to have these deeper exploratory conversations while at the same time you want to share it. So we are recording. We're also on Facebook Live, and our aim is to have this out in the world so people can watch it on Facebook right now, but they won't be able to ask questions and guide the conversation in the same way. And then we're going to be posting it on YouTube too. So people have an opportunity to go over the material again, and more people can have exposure. And then we're going to be having a series of these conversations. So yeah, if you want to join us here in the Zoom room, it is $2 to $4. You can pay on Humanitix. There's a link right there. You can see on Facebook. And yeah, we're just excited. I will be sending you the Zoom link after you get a ticket. So thanks everyone who's joining us in the audience. Yes, yeah, one of you want to pick up a little bit? I'll put some information in the chat just so everybody, I guess, that's here knows. It's we're just kind of going around getting started. We don't exactly know what we're going to talk about. We will evolve the conversation over time. If you're here in Zoom with us, it's totally free and included for you to ask us general questions. They might be topics that you're bringing on your own. They might be about the kinds of things that we're already talking about. And just like when we do our panels, if you want to ask a more personal question and get direct feedback from us from our gifts, then there's a sliding scale fee for that. But we're here for whatever is going to happen today. Yeah, one of you want to pick it up while I post some more in chat.
Okay,
Kai.
so here's my question. Well, this is actually like from a previous conversation we had. So about the monad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I will let you explain what the monad is afterwards. But for me, it's been actually expanded out, because when I look at the whole system, like I told you, like they showed the monad to me like in a grid, right? And when I look at it, I realized that what I was looking at was actually like the past of me. Like, like here's the soul where I am now. And the monad that I was looking at was actually like the evolution of my soul in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And then I turned slightly, they're like, this is what your connection stuff looks like now. And then I turned again, and they're like, this is the future stuff. And I was like, so I didn't so it's almost like I was kind of like in this weird spot where I was like surrounded by all the connections of everything. Instead of it being like a flat grid like I thought it was, it's actually like circular is how I look at it. And I don't know if, and then of course we were talking about like the different color pegs, and I was like seeing pegs all over the place, in the present and the future. And so I don't know if part of your study that you had actually had any information regarding how the monad is not just like a flat 3D kind of, that it's actually much more encompassing than that. Have you come across anything like that? I mean, I thought it was weird. I just saw it this morning and I went, oh.
I want you all to talk about what monad is too, because it's not a commonly used word, and it's part of my work too. And I don't know if you knew that, Kai, when you brought this question. So yeah, so
Well, Lorelei,
yeah.
please tell us how the monad, and then as
Well,
we talk, we'll flesh it out. But I didn't know about that. So can you share more about
and I
that?
don't know if we're all talking about the same thing. So that's why, do you want to share a little bit more about yours, or you want me
Um,
to share mine? What do you want to?
Well, let's share them both, because this is a concept that was totally new to me until Crystal mentioned it. So you might have a definition of what that looks like or what that means. So
Well,
I'm totally interested in hearing what that is.
well, no, Crystal, you've talked about some things that are related to the things that like the derivations of my work too. So I bet it is connecting the same thing. Maybe let's take it back. Crystal, could you say a little bit more about what yours is? And I'm happy to share the way I know it.
Um, so a lot of times we say we are a soul here and we're having a human experience. We actually aren't. It's a hierarchy going back to the monadic plane, the monadic system. So I believe it goes spirit, higher self, soul, and then back to tying into the monad. And my understanding that of this is I'm a personality, I'm a spirit, I'm a personality of a soul in that I showed up this time with the script that I got handed. It's like being an actor, an actress. It's like, okay, Crystal, here's your script. This is what you're going to do this time. You're going to show up as this person, and this is what you're working on. And we really want you to just like own it, like get into that script and like, yeah, just chew up the scenery. Um, which when well, so
I
when
say
I
this is
think
the
about
background shop talk of how we talk to each other. So yeah, go for it.
so Kai, when you said
Scenery.
that well, it's like if you think about a famous actor or actress, right? I'll pick Meryl Streep. I've watched her in like 3 or 4 different movies, and she portrays a different person every single time. But at the end of the day, she steps out of that, she's Meryl Streep. I feel it's kind of the same way. It's like, okay, this is the role, this is what you're going to do this go round to continue to expand your divinity, because we're all a piece of the divine. Um, And so we're encouraged, like I was just saying, to show up and be the best version of myself I can be. And that's a continuing process. Um, so Kai, you talking about it being circular is what it came to me. And that makes total sense because time is a convenience of this plane. And when you were looking at it, you were on a totally different realm and it's not linear. Um, if I remember that diagram correctly, there's 144 um, monadic connections, and then there's stuff within each one of those connections. Um, for those of you in the audience, if you're curious, you can just type in monad into Google, um, and it might also show up in Wikipedia. Um, and then you can go and read different stuff if you're curious about it. Um, there's also a book called Oversoul 7 by Jane, and I can't think of her last name. She's the woman who did Seth Speaks way back in like, wow, the early 70s. And she channeled an entity named Seth and then wrote a book called Oversoul 7, which apparently is like a story that incorporates this stuff that we're talking about.
Daniel's put Jane Roberts in the chat.
Oh, thank you, Daniel. Yes, Jane Roberts. Thank you. So anyways, Kai, when you mentioned that you went and checked it all out, that made sense to me that it was circular versus linear. And I'm impressed at your level of holding the energy to go be able to do that, because that's not an easy task. It's to me, it shows it's like going to the gym and somebody might be just starting to like use a treadmill and you're over there like, free weight lifting, clean and jerk. I mean, you're just like cranking it out to go up there and to be able to handle that level of information and energy. So, anyways, Lorelei.
Well, so I know the term monad, and I pulled some stuff up on Google. So I know the term monad
Mm,
from the eye readings work that I do because my eye readings come from two sources, um, two main sources, and then there's other stuff that gets mixed in at each generation. Like so, I've mixed in new things. My teacher mixed in new things, and before that, there's the Michael teachings, and then Theosophy and Alice Bailey. And so in that system, it's the seven
yes.
rays. So when I look at seven talents in people's eyes, I'm reading the seven rays. And monad has
Ah,
always been listed as like Uh, well, so the seven rays or the seven talents, if I list mine in order of rays, it's the names I use now: power, which is ray 1, ray 2 is love, ray 3 is efficiency, ray 4 is creativity, ray 5 is knowledge, ray 6 is inspiration, and ray 7 is community. And there's someone with a power talent. Power talent is this big, overseeing, large perspective, paradigm, seeing and shifting talent. So someone I know that has the power talent read a bunch of Alice Bailey stuff long ago and knows it very well. And so I know her perspective and I know different perspectives. One perspective is that the monad is like a layer of talent on top of, let me jump again. I describe people as having three talents, right? So I'm knowledge, efficiency, community. And other words I use for these three levels are soul, personality, and then well, I can't think. Soul, personality, and then the third is more mental. Or I do be, do, learn, or being, or doing. So being is our soul, personality is our doing, and then mental is learning. And then under mental, there's emotional and physical. So I know there really are five, even though I mostly talk about people with three, and I think of monad as one on top. And so the way I've always thought of it is like it's just a different evolution, and that most of us, like, it's great if we embody soul in this life, that there's a monad, but like why talk about it because we don't get there. And so the person that was the power talent that knows Alice Bailey's work well, I'm trying to remember which version she had. I think it was someone else that had said maybe that you can only have the first three rays: power, love, or efficiency as monad. And then I also know the perspective that it could be any of the seven as your monad if you use the system of talents for understanding our souls and our beings, just our spiritual energy. So it's monad in there, and I just generally don't think about it a lot. But if I only had three, like which one would I be? I play with that a little bit, but it seems more spacious to be seven. And so I just looked up an image from the Alice Bailey books, and these are channeled books from someone called the Tibetan. And I've attempted to read some of the work before, could never read it like years ago, so put it down and never looked at it again. But I know the knowledge that you have comes from, right, Crystal? This is some of the things that was included in your teachings that you.
Yes.
Mhm.
Alice Bailey was one of the creators of the Theosophic Society, and so was Madame Blavatsky.
Blavatsky,
Um,
yeah, Blavatsky, yeah,
and
Blavatsky.
I believe that was the
Yeah.
early
Hmm.
1900s.
Yep.
And they were in contact with some of the Far East masters, I believe. And so,
Well, Djwal, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Djwal Khul. There are a few different spellings of his
yeah,
name. All that work is channeled from that being who's from Asia.
yes,
Yeah, the Far
he's one of
East.
those ascended masters. Yes.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, so the image on here, it's the seven planes of our solar system. And so it's mental, emotional, physical. And then the one up is intuitional or Buddhic plane. And so that would be my personality. And then the next one is spiritual or the Atmic plane, or I don't know how to pronounce these things. And that would be like what I call soul. Hmm?
mhm.
Atman. It says it's Atmic. Hmm?
Yeah.
I know these words. And then
Um,
monadic. I'm just saying then monadic and then
yeah.
divine. So it's the same similar as the listing that you gave from different direction.
So I want to do a little background stuff first before we keep going forward. Some of you might already know this, so I apologize if I'm repeating myself. When I was about 30, I was introduced to a woman who was a channel. And there's people channel all the time. She would go unconscious and set her consciousness aside so that another ascended master could come through and teach. And that ascended master's name is Katumi. And we met once a week, Friday nights, for 35 years. Um, so Katumi was our teacher. He taught us all kinds of stuff. Um, and so one of the things that we talk about all different kinds of stuff, but the monadic plane was one small morsel of that. We talked about the rays. We talked about the Atman Cadman race. Um, so you can, like, get up into all that different stuff. Um, But at the same time, we also learned stuff that was very practical, that was useful for our own personal development, our own spiritual development. So I just wanted to throw that in there because, like I said, I've had a different sort of exposure to uh, metaphysics as well as metaphysical information and teachings. So that's why, again, like we all like to swap notes because Lorelai's coming from a different place with hers, and Kaya's a different place with hers. So just wanted to provide that background. Thank you.
Yes, because I don't know any of that stuff. Like I had never heard of the monad until you mentioned it, and I went, "What the heck is that?" Because that's not, that has not been a part of my world. Like most of my training have come, through my ancestors, like while I'm sleeping and while I'm actually doing things. Like everything that I do is experiential, right? So in terms of like as soon as you mentioned the monad and like that I could actually trace the path of my soul the way I trace the path of energy or I trace the path of ancestors, I'm like, "Oh, let's do that." And then when I went, I was like, okay, I'm going to follow this path, see where it goes. And then it was like, it opened the door and I saw all this other stuff. Because of my ability to see, I actually saw like part of it. And then I was like, okay, what's that? And then it would open more and open more. And the more that I've looked at it, like the more that they keep showing me to the point where, like I said, it's like this huge circular process that's
Mhm.
both like from my perspective is both past, present, and future. And I think that that's pretty exciting because we can, in looking at it, like if you have the ability to see things or sense things, you can actually see the connections of your soul and who you're connected to and how you're connected. And so I think it's pretty cool that we have this ability that, I mean, I didn't know anything about, honestly. And so for me, it's like a new way of looking at things. And when I looked at the setup of the monad, at first I was kind of like, I don't like this hierarchy thing. Like I really don't. But at the same time, I understand that it's almost like filtering down, but at any point in time, because I've already worked with source, so
Mhm.
technically I can bypass the whole ladder and hit source if I need to, but I don't have to. So it's like it's just another avenue. Like so some people like they want to try to tap into the next level, whatever they perceive that next level to be, they can. If they want to just go straight to the source, they can do that too. So I think that that's a valid that's a valid point to make because I think a lot of the way things are set up is that it kind of reminded me, and I think it was because of the second article that you sent me, Crystal, that the person who's writing about it was very condescending, and it was very much like, "Oh, you poor people, you know nothing. Let me bestow my knowledge upon you, you poor ignorant thing," and that just got on my last nerve. So I looked at it like, I don't need anybody to be an intermediary for me. I can go straight to the source, right? I mean, because that's kind of like how religion's set up, right? Like when you like for at least for Catholics, like you go through the nuns or the priest, and that's your connection to God, right? And so this was kind of set up the same way, and I was like, no, thank you. But at the same time, I was like, wait, by just completely dismissing it, like I'm missing the ability to tap into the different levels at different times for different reasons.
Yeah.
And, if I need to, I can go straight to the source. But if I don't have to, I can tap in anywhere in the grid to pull energy from any part of what I need to do whatever I need to do. And I think that that's an important thing for people to think about. It's like sometimes people think that all that they have is just right here or that they have some unknown force that they can pull from. It's like really it's like if you want to access parts of your own soul or your own soul family, your own soul group, whatever you want to call it, like pick your labels, that you can access things at any time, and your power that you can access is far greater than you thought. And at the same time, because I saw these things that kind of look like light bright pegs to me and of different colors, like I pulled this green one because I was told to by my guides, and it completely changed my energy. And and kind of just altered the way my energy works. And so in looking at the monad just in general may allow you to increase your own abilities, increase your own gifts, change the way you view things if you're willing to kind of just take a look at it. So I think this opens up a lot for people if they're willing to just kind of experiment and go for it. And that's what I did. I just was like, okay, what's that?
Yeah.
Just allowing the curiosity to drive it.
So my only caveat to that is some people go, oh, there's a shortcut. I'm going to go do that.
Yeah.
It's big energy. And the reason it gets stepped down, so by the time it gets to this plane and it gets to us as we're beginning to open to our higher selves, it's like a transformer or a transducer. It just steps it down so that we can actually physically accommodate that level of energy. So if any of you listening are really curious and want to go do this, please be super grounded. Please be aware that you are going to go explore or examine a higher energy. If you're, I don't want you to blow yourself out, essentially. You could fry yourself if you go over there and try and tap this energy and mess around with it. This is Kai's bread and butter neighborhood, been doing this for decades. So, like I said, she's built up her spiritual muscles, if you will, to be able to handle this level of energy. So yeah. It's great on an intellectual basis if you want to read about it, maybe meditate about it, have your guides talk to you or whatever. But just it's like instead of like driving a little Mini Cooper, it's like now you're getting into a Ferrari and you actually have to take training to learn how to drive a Ferrari. So just want you all to be cautious and be safe.
Yeah,
I
no,
want
of
to,
course. I mean, I just I just want to encourage people not to necessarily be afraid of it. Like
Mhm.
go at it with intelligence and good sense. Like
Mhm.
if you tap into something and you're just like, yeah, I think that's too much, then step back because you can. But don't look at it as like, oh, I'll never do that, or I can't touch that, or I can't explore that, because you absolutely can.
Mhm.
It's just you need to do so with some common sense and just, I mean, yeah, I can kind of freestyle some stuff. And if you are, a person who is really good with energy, then yeah, you might get a little further than some people, but that doesn't preclude, that doesn't say that people can't do whatever they want to do as far as
Mhm.
they're able to, as long as you do it safely. Because yeah, this stuff will fry you if you're not careful.
I know I want to
Yeah.
add something, and then I want to say to those of you that are here with us in Zoom, if you have questions about this or you have just a comment about what we're talking about too, feel free, raise your hand and jump in. Um, so one of the stories that I know through my teacher, which I take everything with a grain of salt. The idea is that so we do, and I'll just use monad in here, monad, soul. This is how I think of monad, but monad, soul, and then like our second talent, our third talent, fourth talent, fifth talent, so on, is that we come back as the same soul or the same first talent multiple lifetimes with all different kinds of combinations while we're learning all
Mhm.
these things. And so I assume then as we master all these lessons of our soul, we then go up and like so monad and different combinations of the first talent. So I don't know that it's that
Mhm.
linear and that we have to go through this journey of all this pathway. It just seemed a little constrained to me. And like the universe might be a little more random than all that. Uh, but yeah, so it makes sense to me that going back, like we access different lives and things, going up and down kind of the ladder of this. And yeah, it's just interesting to think about what's in between us and spirit and the different things that we could access in between, as we seem to
Yeah.
idolize in our spiritual culture going all the way through to source. And makes sense there's more on the way. And I know one of you
Yeah,
turned on the video,
absolutely.
so if you have something you want to jump in with, make sure to let us know.
Yeah, please, if anybody has a question or something you want to say, something you want to add, jump in. That's
I
what
want
we're here to do.
Yeah.
to first thank you for offering this. Thank you for your time. And I was just curious, how would one know if one was fried?
Yeah, how would we know if it's too much? And how do you do it slowly enough that you're tapping in, but you're not going too fast, too
So
much?
I've had side effects from doing, energy, practicing, but just how do you know if you can fry? Like, when is it like too far?
So for me, when I was like initially stepping into like going to the class I talked about, we started to work with energy and got told different ways to work with energy. And then I would, and still do, get downloads, and or would be talking to a guide or a master in that process. And for me, it feels like there's weight on my chest and I feel a little bit nauseous. Um, and then my mental goes offline. It's really hard to think. Um, and then I'm just in a place of experiencing where the mental has been offline on purpose so that in a way it would kink the hose because my mind would want to be trying to figure everything out, whereas no, they just wanted to present this whole thing to me, and then I have it, and then I can go sit in the corner and open it up and take out little pieces as I needed to be able to experience it. Um, and if and some of you might get energy downloads or informations from your guides or whoever else you might be working with. And so the next day you might feel like, yeah, I call it an energy hangover. My mind's kind of blurry. It's hard to like rub two brain cells together. Um, it's just like it's a day off. It takes time for, at least for me, for to incorporate all that new energy. Um, and energy is indiscriminate. It will activate whatever it comes into contact with. And when we first start doing this work, energy flows to the most easiest way for it to flow. So where we have created shields or walls or ways to protect the parts of ourselves that are wounded, that's the easiest path for the energy to run because we've put so much into it. We've carved out this path to run our energy to do all those things. And so here comes this energy, comes in, it goes, oh, I'm just going to flow right into all these spots. And then you get to start your work. Stuff starts getting lit up. And it's, yeah, that's can happen. So, and as you move farther up the line and practice more and clear more, then it's less impactful in that fashion.
Well, you gave examples of how it can be too much. I mean, there's also the psychic, psychotic kind of continuum. I mean, it can like move people too far into the
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately psychic context too. So it really is important to go slowly enough, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for me, like when I've hit the point when I'm like technically fried, it doesn't happen very often now, but yeah, occasionally I still get this where I get too much information and yeah, it's kind of like what Crystal said. I kind of have an energy hangover, like I can't focus, and I'm trying to like set my intentions for something, and everything's really cloudy for me. Like I can't focus enough to do that, and so I have to just kind of step back a bit and like do something else, distract myself because it's my brain needs time and my body needs time to kind of process that energy. And
Mm-hmm.
I've had instances where I've gotten so much information, so much energy coming at me all at once that I've literally just fallen asleep and taken a nap because my
Yes.
consciousness need just needed to be out cold for a bit in order to
Mm-hmm.
help process all that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, like so when you approach your limit, like sometimes it will get to the point where your body can't handle it either, and you need to like lay down or sit down or and just literally not function. Um, I've never been at the stage where I'm like completely fried, but I have met people who were, and those are the people who are, for lack of a better way to say it, they're like temporarily damaged because they really don't function. And they are they're like, I did this thing and I don't know what happened. And it actually triggers um like the primal stuff, like fear and terror and oh my gosh, what did I do to myself? Like, did I really do something really horrible? And so the trick to all this is not getting to that point, right? Is recognizing, okay, here's the limit. I'm going to stop now and just kind of allow the energy to do what it's going to do. And then if you decide you want to, then continue. So the objective is always never get to the fried point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you might start off and consider yourself like a little 25-watt light bulb. If you keep doing the work and you keep building and you keep working on it, pretty soon you are the bank of lights in the stadium at a baseball stadium. Now imagine the level of energy that gets pumped into that, and imagine if you pump that energy into a 25-watt bulb. Yeah. So when I first started going to these classes, we worked on grounding and our root chakra for quite some time so that we really had a connection to the physical and the other subtle bodies, and really had a sense and awareness of how our system functioned, instead of just going like, okay, I'm going to go out and like do 20 hits of acid and see what's happened.
Yeah,
You
I
can,
remember. Go
yeah.
ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'm just going to say that there are practitioners that and or people that push it because they're not patient with the process, and they can end up in a psychotic break. Um, and I've talked to other practitioners as well that know people that have done that. And you got to have a timeout so that you can heal. It's yeah.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that when I did my Reiki class, I did Reiki 1 and 2 in a weekend. By
Mhm.
the time I got done with Reiki 2 at the end of the day, I did not even know my name because she she blasted me with so much energy that I walked out of there and I was like, what? What? I mean, it took
Yeah.
me like a couple days to kind of come back to myself after just doing like attunements with Reiki. And
Hmm.
so, like trying to tap into like the highest levels of the monad, it's like, don't even think about it because it's too
Yeah.
hard. Like, kind of step yourself up on that. Because, like I said, I mean, even just Reiki, pretty much like I was like, people were trying to talk to me afterward, and I was just like, what? Because I couldn't focus. I had had so much energy blasted through me that weekend. Yeah, I don't even
Yeah.
know how I got home because I was like, oh, look, I'm home. How did I get here? Like, I didn't even remember driving. So, you
Yeah.
have to, yeah, you have to be really careful with this stuff. And it's not because at first, like when you go through it, you think, oh, it's no big deal. Like, it doesn't affect me. And then it hits you later. It's kind of like eating something spicy, right? It's not that spicy when you're eating it, and then later on, it's like, whoa, right? It's that same type of thing. So when you think you might be approaching that level, then that's the time to kind of like, yeah, maybe I should step back on here and just kind of let it process through. And if I want to go again, go again.
And that's what's
Yeah.
tricky is that you don't necessarily realize when you're in the middle of it that it's so much.
Yeah,
So doing things in
Yeah.
steps and seeing what you
W-
really can be with.
yeah, yeah,
Which is why I would suggest you have a baseline that you know what your energy feels like, so that just in general for everything, but so you can tell like, uh-oh, I'm starting to feel a little off. So you'll have a sense of that so that you will be able to gracefully extract yourself instead of getting lost in a closet, because you can't find your way out. Uh, we did a retreat one time where we were learning a technique about how to pull false beliefs out of our consciousness. And one of the guys that was part of our class, he was quite mental and not like insane. I mean, he ran the mental a lot. Um, so we took a break and everybody dispersed, and he opened this door and walked through this door. We all came back, and he said later, he goes, that was a closet. And I walked in there and the door closed behind me, and I didn't know where I was, and I couldn't find a way out. So he was stuck in a little closet for like a half an hour because he fried himself. He couldn't find his way out. Oh man. So oh, that cracked me up. Anyways, wanted to share that story. Oh,
yeah. So,
okay.
going back to the point you made about like knowing your own energy, I mean, this
Hmm.
is the thing that I've been kind of talking to people about more often is just being able to recognize what your own energy signature is,
Hmm.
meaning like what is the energy of your body? Because everything in your body. Like every organ, every cell in your body kind of sings its own song that is the symphony that is you. And you are unique in that way. Um, it was funny because years ago, people that I trained with, I knew their energy signatures so well that I could close my eyes and they could walk in the room and I could tell you who walked in and where they were in the room with my eyes closed. That's how well I knew their energy. And so, um, if you know your own energy signature well enough and you can feel your energy field because you know your energy signature really well, that will serve you in so many ways. It's not even funny. Because
Sure.
number one, you'll be able to energetically tell if you're overloaded. Secondly, most importantly, at least for the work I do, is that you'll be able to tell if you have an attachment, like a cord or an entity, because you'll feel like a piece of energy that doesn't belong to you, and you'll know immediately that it's not yours.
Mhm. Agreed.
Hopefully
We
that
also,
answered your question, Jess,
Yes,
as
thank
we
you so
rambled
much.
on.
Very thorough.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just had someone else join us too. I just want to clarify that. Thanks for joining us here in Zoom. Yeah, we're working on all the kinks of how to have this work smoothly. So here in Zoom, you're allowed to ask us general questions, free, it's included. It might be on the topic that we're discussing. If we're kind of at a pause and transitioning topics and you want to ask about something else, feel free to do that. If you want to ask us a personal question, then there's a charge just like there is at one of our panels. Yeah. So we've been talking about monad, and then we ended up talking about tapping monad energy or big energy, and just all kinds of downloads, and wanting to practice care, that we don't allow like download too much energy that we can't be with. So really wanting to honor ourselves and our pacing.
Yeah, so
Not
does
blow
anybody
ourselves.
have any questions about what we talked about just now, or like clarification on anything? I know some of the stuff we might have thrown at you was just like, what are they talking about? Does anybody have any questions?
I do. This is Monique. I'm gonna turn my camera on. Do you have ways like I'm thinking about the energy part when you talked about, do you have any tips or strategies to know your energy? I know I sit with myself and I'm with myself, but distinguishing, I guess, my energy from somebody else's. I'll give an example. When family members come to my house sometimes, I'm gonna say most of the times, I feel as though I know my energy, but I feel as though their energy has been left there. Some part of them has been left there. So I guess I'm saying kindly, it's safe for you to go back to them in light and love. I'll say for it to go. Sometimes because I'll get sense or like my senses or whatever you want to call it, like I can smell that they're, it just, but I'm thinking about the energy.
But it sounds
I
like
can
you're
tell that.
asking,
Yeah, go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
say, it
Thank
sounds like you're asking about you and knowing your own, so that when you sense others, you
you.
trust
Yes.
that because you really know yours and you know what the difference is. And then you might
Yeah.
also be asking what to do when you notice someone else's that you don't want.
Yeah. And
Is
how
there
to,
is there more that you're wanting to ask about?
and the other thing is, like I hear other people, and like you said, from your childhood, you've had that experience. How do you know the people or what you're working with or what's coming to you is okay? I think that's the clearest way I can put it. If it's okay, if that's somebody you're supposed to be working with or not. I don't know, I get a little confused there. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
those are kind of my questions. I don't know. I was like, I'm coming on here, I'm gonna ask. So I was like, I'm gonna ask today. I was like, I'm gonna ask. So, but thank you. I'm so glad that y'all did this and had this environment. It's just thank you for allowing in the group. Yep.
Well, you're
So
almost great. And Crystal and Kai, if you don't know, Monique is also a practitioner. This is great. I love that we're having deeper
Oh,
conversation with each other.
well, hi. Um, I'm going to defer to you initially, Kai, because that's kind of your bailiwick in a way. So,
Okay. So yeah, as far as just in general, like learning your own energy signature, what I tell people is if you don't know your energy signature, the fastest way to learn it is to be able to differentiate yours from like a plant, something that is alive, because it has its own energy signature as well. So if you can hold a plant in your hand and be able to tell this energy belongs to the plant and this energy belongs to me, then you've made that designation. And then you step up your game and say, okay, like you stand next to a person and be able to designate, okay, this is mine, that is that person. And that's how you can, and you can do that with your clients. If you are an energy worker, hands-on client, you can like, hey, that's her, that's me. And that's how you can maintain your energy space when it's necessary. Just being able to recognize also when things are meshing together when you don't want them to, then you purposely can separate them. Now, as far as your house, if you recognize, I think what I'm getting, strangely enough, is when you're talking about it, people come over to your house and they leave their energy there. It's because they like the energy of your house, and they part of them wants to stay there. um, in that case, what I would say is if you don't want that to happen, I would handle that in two different ways. Number one, I would either clear my house, with sage or some sort of ceremony or some sort of intention after they leave, or my preferred method is because I use energy shields for everything, is I actually have an energy shield on my house that says basically what you came with, you leave with, and therefore there's nothing left of them in my house when they go. So it just depends on what you want to do and how you want to handle that. But that's what I would do.
Mhm. Yeah.
And you're muted,
Um,
Monique, if you want to share something else. If you're
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. But yeah,
okay.
my niece is here with me, and I was like, she was like, yes, I felt they're still here. She was like, they're still here. So yeah, but thank you for that. That's
I did.
very helpful.
It can even be not only they like your space, they want to be in your life. And so they're kind of enmeshing your energy, enmeshing their energy. They're attempting to enmesh it in your life too. So leaving it behind is part of wanting the relationship to go a particular way. So you have to really know, like, honor yourself that you don't want that. That's all right. And let their energy separate.
So for one of the so for clearing energy, what we got taught was to be grounded. Um, and you can do this while you're meditating as well, but you can do it anytime. Is to visualize a portal opening above your head, and this luminous white light comes cascading down into your space. And you let it run all through, and don't forget your back, because we always tend to forget our back. So you let it run down through your space, and it exits out through the bottoms of your feet, and then it gets returned to the universe and cleaned up, recycled, and then it's available again as pure raw energy. Um, and then by that same token, you can consider yourself having a shield around you as well from that energy. Some people talk about like zipping up your chakras. Other people talk about if, depending on where you're going and what you want to do, your shield can be out farther from you. You can hold it closer to you. However, you can practice how that feels. And then that same energy cleansing thing you can do with your house as well. Um, I just visualize it like a big field, energy field just coming down and just grabbing everything that no longer needs to be there or is not appropriate and just tapping it all and gets grounded off at the same time. You can do that anytime, clear your space. Um, I would, if these techniques are new to you, I would really encourage you that like when you're meditating, once you've grounded and cleared and you feel like you're in a space where you can hear and or start to do things, you can experiment with your energy, experiment with what Sky talked about and what I've talked about. And you might make a hybrid. See, we're just talking about all these different tools, and we're talking about how those tools worked for us, but um, you can use a hammer to crack a walnut, you can use a hammer to drive a nail, you can use the hammer for lots of different things. We're talking about tools. Um, and the awareness of how these tools function so that you will have a more positive experience than a negative experience.
Yeah, I mean,
And
everything that we've talked about so far, or may talk about in the future, you look at it as like here's a technique that works. This is how it works for this person. If you need to
Mhm.
modify it for your own, like make it your own. It doesn't, you know, there's no right or wrong about things for the most part. I mean, there's some stuff like, yeah, don't do that. But for the most part is however it works for you, as long as it works and it's, you know, it's in the best interest of everyone involved. It doesn't matter if it's not exactly the same format, the same way. Make it your own. Just make it work.
Mhm. Yeah, because we all take in energy and information in different ways. So I will experience something, get a feeling off of it, and then I'm like, okay, I want to look at that. But otherwise, I wouldn't be looking at it until I felt it. Um, because I just stimulate, there's information coming to me all the time. And so I'm not looking at every single thing because that would not end well. Um, but once I switch my focus to it, that's a different thing. So it's interesting when Kai and I are talking because she'll just like see it and go do stuff with it. And I'm like, I didn't even see that there because that's not how it works for me. So however it works for you is how it works for you. There's no right or wrong. There's no some ways better than your ways or any other ways. It's like we're all individuals. So how we access ourselves and utilize our energies, it's also all individual. So
Yeah, I have the squirrel method. Squirrel. You know, I start looking at stuff. I'm like, oh, what's that? What's that? You know, that's what I do. And but that's what makes it fun for me because somebody will say something to me and I'm like, what? And then I'm like, okay, I gotta check that out. And then I bring all my attention, all my gifts to bear on something, and then I'm like, and then usually I go, but wait, look at this. Like just what I did earlier with the monad. It was just like before it was just one thing. Now it's like a whole nother thing. And you know, and that's one of the things that I look forward to in doing this kind of work is that we get to look at things and expand in ways that we never expected.
yeah.
And which is why we wanted to do these conversations so that you guys would be included and be able to answer your questions and hear what questions you have because we're learning too. So if you have any questions on anything related to this or energy signatures or energy work or manipulating energy or whatever, like go ahead, shoot, anything.
Yet if you have a different experience of monad, you have a different perspective of it you want to bring. Like we're all here to learn together
Yeah.
is the idea.
Yeah.
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 Oh, Henry's got a
One
question.
if
Yeah,
nobody
go
has
ahead,
a
Henry.
question yet,
Oh,
I wanted to touch back on, it might have been Monique who said this about how do you know if you should be working with this guide or whatever. I think was that what you were
well,
asking?
if
Like, how can
energy's coming towards, how do you know if it's energy you want to work with? That's right. We didn't finish answering that.
yeah, trust your gut. I call it my creep meter. If this feels off to me or creepy or unsafe, then I'm gonna go with that. Um, the worst that'll happen is later on I'll go, oh, okay, that wasn't that, it was something else. But I trust my intuition. I trust what my body's telling me. Um, and the other thing is the divine does not coerce. The divine does not try and scare us. The divine does not try and shame us. The divine does not push us around and tell us this is what you're going to do. So if an energy is coming to you, and or it's an entity or a guide or whatever, uh, first off, trust your intuition. And secondly, if they're trying to push you or say that they know more than you and you should let them in, that's not true. We are all sovereign. We are all our own sovereign entity. And uh, they're not those that are aligned with source in a positive way, they're not going to bamboozle you and try and bulldoze their way into your space. Um, yeah.
There's asking guides in the moment, is this good for me now? Right?
I'm sorry, what?
One can ask guides, right? Is this one can ask, right? You can ask your guides, is this good for me now? Is this relationship, is this interaction good for me?
Mhm.
Yeah. The
And you can say, who do you work for? Who do you represent? Who are you aligned with? There's been a couple different times where someone a guide or a master as well has approached me and kind of like, I want you on my team. And I'm like, no. The vibe I get is you are not going to let me ask any questions. It's going to be my way or the highway, and I'm not interested in that. That's not how I roll. So no, thank you. No. That's what I
Um,
mean by you have your own sovereignness that you can refuse or say no, thank you. So,
yeah, and along those lines, I've been getting more people asking me things like, well, I keep hearing these voices and they're keep telling me stuff, and how do I know if it's like a real guide or if it's something else? And I said, well, there's two ways to tell. The first is like, how do you feel when that energy is close to you? If you don't feel
mhm,
good, then automatically that's a no. If you're not sure, then the next thing is, what is it asking you to do? If it's asking you to do something that's harmful to you or to someone else or whatever it is, then again, the answer is no. Because sometimes people think, well, I think it's my own thoughts. And I'm like, yeah, but would you ever tell yourself to hurt somebody else? They go, no. I'm like, then it's not you. I mean, and it seems kind of silly to say that, but I mean, sometimes people think, well, but it sounds like me. It's got my voice. I said, yeah, but you would never say that. So unless you think those kinds of thoughts, like that's completely out of character, and therefore it's not a guide. It is something else. And the something else is probably an entity of some kind that is negative in nature. And some and people go, oh, I didn't think about that. I didn't realize that. But it's a question that's been coming up more recently in like some of the client. I mean, I had that twice yesterday at a fair that I did. And so it's a thing that I don't know if like negativity is like kind of like stepping up their game and trying to influence more people more so than before, or it's just something that I started to notice because I'm not always on the ball with stuff. Um, and I don't know if the other practitioners here, if that's something that you've noticed as well, but it's a question I keep getting asked. Like, how do I know if that's the right thing, or if it's a real guide, or if it's a real guidance kind of thing? And I always say, how does it feel, and what do they say?
mhm.
I think it's up to us too to have our own sense of integrity, right?
Yes.
Integrity on this plane, integrity spiritually, and like if any energy is asking us to do, telling us to do something that feels out of integrity for us, it's usually safer not to follow it, safer to inquire. Maybe there's some bigger, broader thing that it's opening us to that we don't know. And maybe it is an integrity in a way we've not opened to yet. But yeah, I think being discerning and asking questions is a good thing.
Also would encourage you that sometimes when we're starting on our path and we're beginning to question things more, sometimes we feel like we don't know anything. And we want someone to tell us what to do. Um, that there's safety in that, that's a whole nother side conversation. But that's when you have to be careful about who shows up. And like what Kai just said about asking those questions. Um, there are entities that don't want to reincarnate and have a body, but they can float around and hang on to your body and influence your experience and suck your energy and stuff like that. Um, so again, we want to practice discernment and the points that Kaya and Lorelei made about staying in integrity with ourselves. Um, that one person that Lorelei referred to me and Kaya to try and help who was thought that they were supposed to stop eating and stop drinking water and, you know, do ridiculous things. And it's like, that's not somebody who's wanting to help you on your spiritual path. That's not supportive. That's a massive red flag. That's poster child red flag right there. So,
Yeah.
um,
Something that's really destructive, right, to us or destructive to someone else or something else that, right, is not our business to be destroying.
mhm.
Yeah.
And if that's happening for you and you're at one of the MeWe events, come up to us and tell us about it so that we can say, hey, let's do a little check and make sure that you don't have something hanging on you that doesn't belong to you.
And to say too, there's this sneaky slippery slope of all this too, because like I've had lots of teachers where their teachings may be very good, and there's mess that they also bring with them in the way they deliver
Mm,
it. And so
yes.
yeah, not just it's always not just a simple yes or no, or it's good or not good. Yeah, it's what
Yeah, it's
things are
like,
good and hmm,
no, I was gonna say it's like, yeah, when you start talking about mentors and mentorships and stuff like that, you
Mhm,
gotta be really, really careful who you trust.
mhm,
Because I mean, I've been really fortunate in the people that have taught me that I've had really good, strong people with conviction to do good in the world. But I've met a lot of people who have not. Um, and you need to be, I mean, especially as practitioners, if being a mentor is something that you want to do, like keep in mind, like, what are your motivations and be able to turn away those people that you can't help
mhm,
if you're as a mentor. And if you're looking for a mentor, make sure that you find someone that honors your autonomy
mhm,
because there's too many out there that I've met actually that are insistent, like, you must do things my way. And if
mhm.
you don't, like, they treat you like a scapegoat. I'm like, that's not conducive to anything.
Yeah.
Like, you need someone, and I also met some that are very like, you're going to be tied to me for the rest of your life kind of thing.
Mhm.
And I was like, no, no. Like a good mentor, like, teaches you and lets you go.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
I
and
always
if you need to,
say,
yeah, if you need to come back for something, that's fine. But
yeah.
it's not a permanent arrangement. And if you come across something that insists that it's going to be permanent or super long term, walk away.
right, or like that
Yeah.
they owe you, or kind of the yeah,
Right.
or like that you
My,
owe them. They make it seem like you owe them, and yeah,
yeah, exactly. My job is to work myself out of a job if I'm mentoring or coaching somebody.
Yeah.
And also the person that you're working with, they should have kind of like a curriculum or they should be able to tell you what their goals are and how they align with your goals. And it might not be a good fit. You should be able to potentially have a discovery call or an interview, if you will. You should be interviewing these people and have questions to ask them. What is your practice? Just stuff like we're talking about here. But if you're interviewing them to be your teacher or your mentor or your coach, you kind of got to want to know what you're getting into, just like Kai said. And
Yeah.
if you
I
come
mean,
from a,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you're coming from a background of trauma and that's the way your family rolled, that you weren't allowed to ask questions and you just had to do whatever they said, if that patterning is still prevalent for you, then you extra have to be careful about who you are going to use as a mentor or a teacher or a coach or whatever, because you might not see that they are toxic.
yeah, definitely. In hindsight, I could see more clearly with some of my teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like mimicking my
Yeah.
family and the way I made it through my family. Yep.
Mhm.
Well, I know. So we finished up the one question. I want to be able to transition and let other people get their questions in. So
Yeah, I just
Henry
want
or
to say one more
Tom.
thing.
Okay. Oh, there's more. There's more. Go
I just
ahead.
want to say one more thing. Well, no, because we were talking about the mentors. It's like when I do my mentorships, like, I literally have it's short term. It's either 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and then I cut you loose. And what we're
Mhm.
doing during that time is we're going to work on the thing that you most want to work on. So they
Mhm.
get to determine what we're going to work on, and then I get to play devil's advocate and, like, and do all the stuff, to get them where they want to go. But it's like,
Mhm.
you choose the topic, I've chosen the time, and that's it. Once we're done, we're done. And then you go off, you do your thing, and if you need to come back, we can do it. But I do this intensive thing for a short time, and then off you go, because I don't want dependence. That's, for me as a mentor, that's the last thing I want. I don't want people to depend on me, because to a certain degree, I'm already kind of that person where people are like, oh my God, I'm freaking out. I need to call Kai and she can fix this. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'm not your stopgap. I'm not your fixer. Like, you need to figure out things for yourself. And as a mentor, I mean, that doesn't mean to say that if something major happens that I won't step in for my students. But at the same time, it's like, you need to understand that at some point you got to stand on your own 2 feet, and you might as
Mhm.
well start now.
Yeah.
Okay, next
Great.
question.
All right, Henry or Todd, what question did you have for us?
Hi. So I'm kind of listening to the evening, and by the hi Kai, hi Crystal, hi Lorelei, how's everything going? Listening to the evening and kind of figuring out my question. So I'm going to like a 30-second elevator thing about so I guess I came from a very fear-based reality, right? So conspiracy theory stuff, toxicity and stuff, and stuff like that. But I was never really like that. It was just kind of like that's what kind of came into being for me. But I was actually a very quiet boy and very quiet and just like watched a lot. But anyway. Then I went to conceptual addiction, like addicted to concepts, right? Oh, I want to learn about that. I want to learn about that. I want to learn about that. While like at least 15, 12 years in conceptual addiction. Then teacher dependence, which I think you're mentioning, like teacher dependence, and like where you're trying to elevate yourself through someone else's ideas and concepts, which works to some degree, but then there's a limit, and then you got to really do it yourself. And then after that, I'm currently in some weird quagmire of emotional understanding and processing, third eye understanding and processing, and um, and that's kind of like so. I think of like the fear-based reality and conceptual addiction and teacher-based addiction. That's kind of like where you're all doing the outer world stuff and trying to navigate that. But now I'm actually in my inner world with emotional understanding and processing, third eye understanding and processing. So it's not like out there anymore. At least I'm dealing with who I am now rather than trying to find something out there. So, and the things I'm having a hard time with is strong emotions. I'm a little bipolar. So I have very lows aren't so bad. Well, okay, they can be bad sometimes. And very high highs, but I don't get into the phase of like, okay, now I'm present and I'm saving the world kind of stuff anymore, which would happen earlier, and I haven't done my meds in six months now, and I actually haven't had any schizophrenic things, which is like schizoaffective is my thing, and I haven't had any of the schizophrenic things like auditory or visual hallucination or anything, but I still have a little of the bipolar stuff, flowing back and forth, and I'm trying to find a more natural way to manage that. So the biggest thing with the emotional processing is one thing where I'm learning how to navigate that. But then the third eye thing is really difficult because if you have like projections of the future and you can see future projections and they're either future projections that require effort or some kind of God effort to happen, or some level of like it's a multidimensional universe and you might not even walk toward that possible future. But the question is like it sometimes I embody those third eye experiences so much that sometimes I fast forward the event in my mind, or I'm actually living in that future moment, even though that future moment isn't living in the now, right? So it's like, how do I step back and distance myself from third eye experiences that you are so powerful and so real and but are other dimensions or a future reality you may be walking toward, but probably like killing it or like crashing it because you have so much knowledge of it that it kind of messes with your present moment experience with those with the multidimensional space into working out where you're going next.
I have an idea of how to generalize your question a bit. So if
Yeah,
you're
because
asking
that's
it as
like
a
a lot.
general
I'm
question,
very mindy, so yeah.
no, it's all right. It's great, right? Use some personal things. But so if we're tapping into psychic capacity, how do we stay grounded on this plane and grounded in this experience and tap into that capacity and be able to be back?
Right.
So how do we go there, realize what that is, realize that that's not right now, or it's a different version and not this right now? And how do we be back here?
Mhm.
And Lorelei, you are my official translator, so future reference. If that's hands or whatever. Anyway, so thank you.
Yeah, who wants to leave there? I think we're looking at you,
Rock,
Crystal. If you
paper,
want to take this
scissors.
one, yeah.
Okay, one thing, Daniel. It was Daniel, right?
It's Henry or
No,
Todd.
it's Henry
Yeah,
today.
I'm
I'll go by
sorry.
Henry today. You can call me
Henry
Dan.
today.
Okay, all right, Henry. I would challenge your thing where you're having a third eye experience and you think you're in the future and you're living it. I don't think that's what's happening. I
Okay.
think that is your mind trying to make it something to give it context. Um,
Mhm.
Timelines exist. absolutely. But literally, they can change in the blink of an eye. A lot of it depends on what's happening with us. Our external reality is a reflection of our internal reality. That's the first law, the first principle of energy in this universe. Um, so when you are having all those experiences, like you're beginning to explore your emotional stuff, you're beginning to explore your third eye, um, you want to stay here. You want to stay in the body. You don't, and I would ask you, how grounded are you? Because what I'm getting while you're talking about that is rapid increase in heart rate, rapid increase in breath. It's almost like you've kicked a bunch of adrenaline into gear. And I'm wondering also if that's also giving you a dopamine hit and norepinephrine hit.
Oh, so yeah, I guess like if I'm gonna, kind of check in for a second, um, yeah, there's some activity like fast molecule kind of thing going on, um, but um, I believe I operate at that frequency and I can be heart-centered at that frequency, even though it's kind of weird for people. They think you need to be at a lower, like a more calm frequency. But I actually have a fast mind and
Mhm.
fast things going on.
Mhm.
So I think I can be heart-centered while still you having that experience of me as a very heightened experience. Does that make sense?
Right, right. And I get that. I get that totally. But if you have to remember that you're a fourfold being. You're not all just mental, you're also spiritual, emotional, and physical. We have these four subtle bodies, and they all have equal importance. Our society tends to encourage us that the mental is all that matters, but literally that's not true. Um, so the point I was trying to make is about being grounded is so that your body feels safe when you're doing this, and so that your emotional aspects also feel safe while you're doing this. Um, it's kind of like leaving the kids at home and you go off and go party all night and then you come home and the kids are like in survival mode because the parent, the controlling identity has not been home. So I was just trying to encourage you to stay with yourself and become the observer. That's the key to all of this is to become the observer. We are not our thoughts. We are not our emotions. We're not our bodies. We are greater than the sum of all our parts. So the more we can stand in a place of observation of present time, the less chaotic our lives will be.
I think that's some of the question of like, how do I how do I know, have, feel this connection to me that I know I'm here? So when I'm like wandering off, aware of all the gifts, like things are coming in, or I'm wandering somewhere, like how do I come back and know that I'm back?
Well, I mean, looking at the chat, like Daniel had said, tracking body sensation brings up the present. Like that's a perfect answer. Um, the other part to consider is that when your energy is like super chaotic like that, it's okay to be running at like, high octane, like energy type thing. But what's required for all that is focus because you can be going 50 miles an hour, but if you know where you're going and you have a goal, like I'm going and I'm coming back, that creates the focus. Like what happens is as you were talking, like I was getting this sensation of like this chaotic energy that's all the way around you. And you're like, I'm going here and I'm going there. And like I need to go back and all this other stuff. It's like whatever level of energy you're at, whether it's be like super grounded, super slow, or high octane, the key is focus. Like I'm
Mhm.
going there and I'm coming back. And you're in control of that whole process. It's whether or not you want to, because sometimes it's fun to kind of be out of control and like just let it rip. But at the same time, like that is detrimental. That is like you're heading into the area we talked about earlier, which is getting fried and
Mhm.
burning out. So really wherever you normally float as far as energy, like the most important thing is always focus. and your intention. Where am I going? How long am I going to be there? And what do I hope to gain by going there? And once I've got it, I'm done and I go back.
And I think I have a default of an anchor that I come back to. So, and I think Todd or Henry, you haven't built as much of
You
like
go,
the
Todd.
anchor.
I messed up. I meant
Okay.
Todd. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm used to, but I think you don't. I think part of it. So Crystal, Kai, and I, the way I read people's eyes, we all naturally have some anchoring energy. And so Henry, you probably don't have as much of an anchor that you've built, that you've maybe naturally had and that you've built. And I know, so like Daniel had asked about body sensations. To some extent, I use body sensations, but at the same time, like and I think a bunch of you too, right? We pick up things in our bodies that are about other people too. So we still have to distinguish between our physical experience now and what physical awareness we have that's not us. It might be now that we're experiencing, but not us at the same time. So I think I personally, I'm saying, because sometimes I go wandering, right, and I'm like sensing into other people and past, and I can get a bit like "Ugh," afterwards. That's a little bit of the like kind of the too much thing. So I think that I might give myself a stronger physical experience. Like I think know, like I might actually smack my hands together to give myself an
Mhm.
intense physical experience of like
Yeah.
I'm here. Or I mean, I might go outside and things like that, but I'm more likely to do something like that just to kind of like shock myself back here in a way of like get a stark, strong experience of right here. So do it in a way that's not damaging to me and at the same time, boom, like I'm here. Because
Yeah.
I can get lost in like this wandery place.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like that's like with like if you're like part of the Native American when you go journeying with a shaman and they have the drums, like they have the beat that sends you out and then you have the callback beat that brings you back.
Hmm.
It's the same thing. That's just that serves the same function. So yeah, so sometimes I tell people, yeah, like you said, slap your hands, tap the back of your, like or make some sound sometimes and then you come back to where you are. But yeah, it's the same thing.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I might be creating those things for yourself, Henry. Creating what some of those are.
Yeah. Setting a timer.
Yeah, the
Well, I
alarm
mean,
going off.
it's like happening in the world as I'm going about things most of the time. If I'm in my room, I'm good. Well, I mean, there's like
You,
ups and downs, but
you
I'm
can
pretty much like, okay. So
you can have some ways to do that. So part of it is you noticing what your experience is like at all these levels when you're connected to yourself and you're present and when you're not. And you might have various versions of not, but being aware of how those are different so that you can then invoke whatever that is that has you get present and be back and know that you're here and connected to you.
And
And
if
also
it's
just
sorry.
an experiment. I mean, do you have a cell phone, right?
yeah, somewhere.
Okay.
There it is. Yeah, okay.
Somewhere, right? So maybe for just a day, maybe on a weekend or something, so it won't be so impactful or interrupting if you're at a job or something. Set an alarm for every 30 minutes and check in and see where you are. Where am I? Where was I? Here's my alarm. It just went off. This is my check-in point. And I also would encourage you to journal about it, to make notes about it. Okay, at 10:30, the alarm went off. This is what was going on for me. At 11 o'clock, the alarm went off. This was what was going on for me. It's like a breadcrumb trail so
Mhm.
that you have something that you can refer back to, which might help you get more skillful um, at monitoring yourself more and being able to come back more easily.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is that, when I have episodes like that where I'm just off doing something and, like I'm in the middle of something, and I always tell my guides like, if you notice me about to do this before I jump off, especially like if I'm driving or something, I was like, don't let me go. Don't let me leave. Because
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, because sometimes these things can happen. Like I would just be like driving in a car and you start spacing out because you're sitting in traffic. And then before you know it, it's just like, what happened? And so, I always tell my guides, if I'm in a situation where that is not acceptable and it's not safe or it's just not a good time, like don't let me leave. And literally like I feel them kind of like sitting on my energy so I don't escape during that time. And so, you can ask for outside assistance for,
Hmm.
for something like that to kind of help stabilize you wherever you happen to be and whatever your situation is. So if you're at work trying to, you're sitting in a meeting, you don't want to be floating away. Um, you can do
Yeah,
that as well.
I don't think I float away, but I think like I think the hard part for me on the emotional and third eye level and stuff. So first of all, I've come to the conclusion, or at least maybe it's like a conclusion that helps me, or it's also maybe a real conclusion, that I have no thoughts. I'm a thoughtless being. And the thoughts coming into my head are not actually my own. And when I say I am this, or I am feeling that, or it's like I start putting my eye on it, kind of embodies me into that thing. So I don't think I have any thoughts. I think all the thoughts in my head are actually my past, my projection of the future, and everything I'm getting in the environment. Maybe I have thoughts in there. I mean, I can't find those thoughts that are me, but really, for safety reasons, I kind of just put everything out there as I don't have thoughts. I'm just a thoughtless being experiencing an emotional reality right at this point. So like the way I'm doing it now is I'm following love and light. If I go in this atmosphere and it feels lovely and lightly, I'll do more of that in life. If I go over here and it changes, the same people can all of a sudden not feel lovely and lightly, and I'll move away from that. And then maybe a few months later I interact with them again out of some weird happenstance, and then they feel that way again, and it's fine again. So I'm just kind of flowing into things like that. But the part I have a problem with, maybe I'm not clear because I'm getting like, safety issues. It's like I'm not afraid of the world anymore. It's like I can go anywhere, right? I can go into the, what I mean, not like in the street. I don't know, so not like really bad places, but I pretty much go a lot of places and I can handle myself. But it's the other people's realities that I tune into, and uh and I'm so empathetic that I can sometimes take them on, or it's how I or my precognition of how I'm being perceived in the moment, and not being able to put enough energy or enough throat chakra abilities or whatever into the experience of the room to let them know who I really am and what I'm really experiencing and who the person really is, rather than the ideas that they have around me. Um, it's just this general idea of knowing that, like Maya is the Buddhist idea of illusion, right? So the general idea that illusion exists and people will always have an illusion of who you are and will never see you for who you are, and having peace and having peace and just being in the space, like maybe no one, like only several people will get me in life, and having a peaceful place with that, where not that I don't care how I'm perceived. I always work toward having them perceive me in a more uh, knowing way, but it's like having peace with the idea that no one will ever know you like I know myself. I don't know, something like that. So it's like, so when I get things, it's like I say something off and I know in the social strata it didn't work out the way I meant it. And then not being able to clarify it because that's weird, or not being able, like it's just like being locked by society. Because first of all, like Aspie people, I don't know if I'm Aspie, but this idea of like social strata norms that you can't bypass because you have to work within the social strata that lies about how they really feel, because they need to protect other units in the social strata, or it's kind of like this social ecosystem. It's not really built well for in Earth, at least, for um neurodivergence.
Yeah.
And
Can I,
I'm trying to
it, and
get there, but I don't know
I
where I'm
think you
going.
brought
Yeah.
up, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I think you brought up like really what exactly is there. Is as I was thinking about how I'm autistic and the grief that I have felt at times where, and this can happen anywhere. And I just particularly know it as an autistic experience where someone doesn't get me and there's nothing that I can do to rescue that
Nothing.
and to have them get me.
Yeah.
And really, the journey for me is to be with myself and to
Deep
grieve in
sadness.
myself and to move on and to trust that I have more opportunities with that person, or maybe that person isn't right for me right now. And if they never get me and never see me, it's just not what's right for me. And I have to trust that there are other people that get me and see me.
Mhm.
It's me being with me, right? I
And I'm
think that there's so
cognitively
much
100%
content.
there like that, but
Yeah.
there's a sadness that just doesn't go away,
Yeah. And I would
So
encourage you
like
that it
what do you
does.
do with that,
Yeah, so
So
it can go away. I can be a little addictive and um obsessive compulsive about stuff. And so it's my job to let it go and to love myself even if I have trouble letting it go. And that's how, love the part of me that's clinging on. And that's how gradually I do let go.
But that's true. I mean, that situation of not being accepted and for people who will never get you, that is a situation that happens on some level to everyone.
right.
Mhm.
I mean, it's not so, like it's like I've had that same thing, like because of my gifts or because of, I mean, like, pick your label. As
Mm-hmm.
soon as you are in an area or in a room that is with anything different other than you, then automatically they see you however they see you, regardless of what you actually are. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I walk into a store and people assume I don't speak English just because of how I look.
Hmm.
So everyone encounters this to a certain degree on a certain level on, in some way. Like people who are older, people assume that, they're doddering and they must not know anything because they're older, which is not true. And then there's the same thing with, like, if you're younger, people assume you know nothing because you're so young. It's like people have their assumptions and there's nothing you can do about them. Your job is to be who you were meant to be. And if people can accept you as you are, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
If not, then not.
And then keep wandering into the spaces where you're more likely to find the people that get you, that
Mm-hmm.
resonate with you.
Oh, I have
And
a
just
lot of those
it's
spaces now,
well, it's
but
like
it's like the
it's
spaces
great.
that don't is like, oh, get me. It's like so,
And
it's
it's
not it's sad, and it's also like you get this kind of like, well, F you to all that parts of the world, right? But that's not a
right and
healthy
part
place to be
and
either,
to ideally be
So
in a place of right, but just
yeah,
not to have to push them away so that we feel
right.
okay. It's just to recognize like a parting is this like that's a natural thing. Right. It's similar. This is similar in some ways to what we talked about before of knowing, is it a good energy that's coming towards us, a good energy that's here that's sharing
Right.
something with us, or not good for us. And right, it's discerning. And so, and picking it up sooner and sooner, right, with little and little, less and less connection, less and less interaction for people and for these energies. Yeah.
Mm. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Feel good now. Mm, I feel that's good. I'm complete.
Oh, something that got mentioned here that I want to make sure that I mention because it's come up twice, and I think this is a great thing. So I think we all know that intention matters. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone's learning, right? I just like in our audience and the people that might be watching online.
Mm-hmm.
Setting the intention matters a lot. We have to know that we're able and set the intention. And part of, so Kai is so great at this. And Kai, you gave two examples tonight that are about setting conditional intentions. So this isn't often talked about. So I just want to make this really explicit. You gave the example for your house that you have kind of a shield that's up that says when people come in that they take all their stuff with them.
Mm-hmm.
And you said you had the intention with your guides that if you start to go somewhere and it's not a good place for you to go somewhere, like that they will make sure you stay here.
Mm-hmm.
So there are all sorts of ways that we can set conditions like this so that we don't have to be looking for all this stuff and worrying for all this stuff and be able to take care of ourselves in that moment. Notice all the
Mm-hmm.
things that need to be cared for. These are examples where you set it up ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Right. So Todd,
that's
for
where
example, Henry, I just want to say you could set up an intention that when someone's not going to get you, that you notice early and you go another direction, that you get that information.
Mhm.
Right. There are ways to make this experience easier for us. Sorry, go ahead, Crystal.
I was going to say that using affirmations is another way to consciously set an intent. Um, we create our future one moment at a time. Um, so when we are consciously setting an intent, then we are present, we are in the moment, and that little foundational piece of that moment, when we're setting either an intention like Kai's talking about, or using an affirmation to help set that intent. For example, in this moment, I am safe. If you keep focusing on that, then you get off that hamster wheel over here that's going crazy and telling you stuff, and you just keep feeling less and less safe or more anxious. Again, coming back to being setting an intention, now you are consciously choosing what you want instead of being badgered by an old pattern, by an old thought form, by an old dialogue story. So I just wanted to reinforce what you're talking about consciously setting your intentions.
Great. Great. And I just noticed too, Todd, you did pay for us to answer personal questions. So yeah, thanks so
Right.
much for
I
for
did,
diving
yeah.
in that way with us. Yeah, it's
I
great.
found my way here. So
Yeah, it's great.
thank you.
I maybe just in terms of that, I wanted to say just a couple more things. Um, and someone mentioned in the chat too that you might oh yeah, and thank you for coming,
I
even though it has
replied,
to leave
yeah.
early. There's someone else too to thank. So you your mind is so fast and your mind can go spinning and running right? And that can like lean a little bit into what I know of mania, right?
Mm.
I'm not saying that you are, but that's something to watch too, right? Because then your
Yeah.
mind starts to spin. And so the
Mm.
combination of like being really smart, being more comfortable in mind, being tending to be more can be more manic, and then also the neurodivergence and like all those things, right?
Mm.
So it's how do you stay connected to you while your mind gets to do its thing? So I
Mm.
think having the anchor in various ways can really support you with that too.
Mm. Mm.
So you finding what
Yeah,
that
and the
is,
thing
like,
about anchors, yeah, anchors can be like a physical object, like
Mhm.
you can be like, okay, here's a rock in my pocket, here's my anchor. And people literally do that. Like they will have a rock in
I
their
have done
pocket
that before.
that they hold on to, and it's like whenever they feel that rock, it's like that's where I'm at. I'm right here. And
Mm.
so sometimes it's that simple.
That's a nice one. I like that one.
yeah, so, right? I was just pulling this out of my pocket, Kai, as you were saying that. That's great. I was going to show it. Yeah. Yeah, I had a red piece of um, fossilized coral that I used to carry. Yeah. To having something like that that's a key for you. And it can be something that's pretty invisible. No one else knows what's going on. It's just something that you do for yourself. Like if you notice yourself starting to spin, right, as a way to ground.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it doesn't, or for people who don't want to carry around physical things, you could actually look at it like, if you're walking or you're moving, or even if you're not moving, that when your feet touch the ground, it's actually digging into the ground. And so like that, just that sensation of like being that stable can pull you back into your body and make you focus on what you're doing, or some sound that's in the room, like focus on something, even if you're like in your kitchen and you're hearing your refrigerator hum, like something like that could actually ground you as well, or bring you into the present moment. So just use what you have,
Mm.
the sound of the air conditioner, or just anything, any
Yeah,
kind of
I've done
white
that
noise.
before. Yeah,
Yeah,
sound-based grounding.
yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. So whatever works for you, like if it's a sound, if it's an object, if it's, some sort of light fixture, imagining some sort of picture, imagining a person, anything that works for you that can function as an energy anchor for you so that you can be present. Um, yeah, because sometimes energy anchors for the most part are good, and they're not sometimes.
Oh boy.
I mean, because there's some things that can anchor your energy that you actually don't want to anchor your energy. Like in my
Mm.
case, when I work with ancestors, there's some ancestors who have not crossed over, and they are literally creating an energy anchor that holds down not just you, but your entire family. And those are the ones that need to be released. So that's another form of energy anchor that's not so good, but like rocks that you keep in your pockets or pennies and things like that, like they can serve a fantastic purpose to kind of keep you grounded.
Mm. Thank you.
Great, great.
You're welcome.
All right.
Any
Yeah.
other brave questions?
Any other general questions on all the different things we've been talking about, or is there some related topic or some new topic someone wants to bring up?
Or anything anybody wants to add?
Yeah. Then we deeply appreciate you coming and helping us discover what these events are going to become.
Yeah, it's like whoever added questions. I mean, we had a really good discussion on a lot of those things. So I think that was really good. So if anybody has anything else, any other burning things that they wanted to ask or they've been thinking about or whatever you've been working on, I mean, just share that as well. I mean, I think that's the fun part of us being able to go, oh yeah, I did that, or really maybe I should try that. I mean, that's kind of my gig. People tell me new things and I go, what is that? So
Or maybe I just, for the people that are professional practitioners in the audience, do you find yourself having different conversations with your colleagues? Like, and what are the kinds of things that you do talk about? And right, so obviously it's a little bit of there's some confidential stuff that we talk about, but then there's general stuff that we talk about too, and how we learn from our experiences with each other. Yeah, our aim is to bring these kinds of things here. Yeah, Daniel, go ahead.
Well, this occurs to me, and it could be an interesting direction to go or not. For a couple of weeks, several weeks now, I've been reflecting. By the way, can you hear me okay? Mic working okay? Okay.
Yep.
I've been reflecting on Susie Parker Goings,
Mm.
and she passed over. And I think that several of us had significant connections to her.
Mhm.
And so I'm just curious if anybody else has been kind of deepening into their relationship to her and might have anything to report. You know, there's a sort of the standard human level of somebody leaves your life and so forth, but there's additional self-awarenesses here around interdimensional consciousness that we may have, or our multidimensional nature. And I think there could be some interesting observations that might be from a personal vantage point if you've been kind of revisiting your relationship with Susie. So I don't know if that makes sense. I'm just talking as it's coming to me right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense to me. Because part of my skills are as a medium. I've talked to Susie several times. I was just at the Linwood Fair and she showed up there and, was her same bubbly self. And in speaking to her, she basically told me, and this was shortly after she passed, that she's actually kind of been going back and forth between source and coming back to assist her family with things. And so
Mhm.
she's still the same crazy person she's that I know her to be. And but I have been like you said, kind of reflecting on, what it was like to be in her presence and her energy, and just being very grateful for what I had with her. And it's just been really interesting for me to kind of look at things in a different way. And before she passed, when she got the diagnosis, I she called me and I said, okay, well, what I'll do is I'll set up an energy ball for you that has what it is. It's an energy ball that continues to refill and send her whatever frequency of energy she needed for whatever she wanted. And and what I do with those is like they stay with the person until it's no longer necessary, and then whatever energy is left is then given to the earth. And being an energy healer, I know that when there's a difference between the types of energy a person uses when they're trying to heal and they're trying to live versus the energy that they need when they're getting ready to cross over. The energy changes. And so when I looked at the energy ball, I actually saw that she had used a whole lot of energy to survive. And then at some point it switched and she actually used the energy to help her cross over, which I'm totally okay with because, I set the intention when I do energy balls that they can use it however, for whatever they want. And that's what she chose to do. And I think that that helped. Well, I know it helped to make her transition easier. So for me, that actually made me feel good that I was able to help in that process. However, she chose to do it, that I was able to assist. So for me, um, that was the first time that that's actually happened for me in that way. So that was a new thing for me. And she did actually come and thank me for that because she said, yeah, it was easier to transition with the energy that was given to her because sometimes it's hard to cross over quickly if you don't have the energy to do it. And having access to that made it smoother for her. So I was grateful for that.
I know one of our colleagues that's very connected with her energetically said that she had an opportunity to cross over to help in a different way on the other side, and so she chose that opportunity. I know for me, I've just been watching her shrink and shrink for a long time. So, and of all the people that I've known that have left, I feel the most comfortable with her leaving. Somehow I not go through the same feelings of loss and grief that I have with so many others. And as I connect to her energy now, I see her the way she was a few years ago, of more like bending and twisting and dancing as she's um, working with people and playing with people, and like having information come through her. I just feel like it's a new perspective on past lives, her practices past lives. So yeah. So I still see her yeah, assisting in so many ways. And so for me it feels like she's still here. Yeah, anything else anyone wants to share? Susie. But yeah, some of us that saw her regularly, it's different if you didn't see her often. I just just over the last months and months, it's yeah.
Yeah. Well, and plus, I was fortunate that I got to do a podcast with her for a short time, and it's funny because I was watching a couple of them a few days ago, and I was just like, wow, like things were so different then, in terms of her energy and how she looked and her outlook on life at that point was completely different than how it was in the last few months. And I thought, wow, that's interesting. And it was kind of good in a way that we didn't continue the podcast because then that allowed her to expand into other things. And I think it was a good move for her, something that she needed to do. Um, and also, it's funny that you said that um, somebody told you that, yeah, she took an opportunity. And that's kind of what Crystal and I got is that there was an opportunity that came up and she took it.
Yeah.
That she could have stayed and, kind of fought everything and all that kind of stuff. But she decided not to. She decided that she wanted to take that opportunity and off she went. And at the time I was like, okay, I get it. So
Anything else, Daniel, that you're wanting on that or
now he posted a picture. Cute.
okay, yeah. Yeah, with Galactic Ashley. Yeah. Her cheerful energy. Yeah.
I didn't have anything I was aiming for on that. I was just more wanted to create an open space to see what would show up for people.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we're getting ready to do the BEPC holiday party tomorrow. And that's something that Susie often participated in.
Yeah, I was just like, who's gonna be in the main room now that Susie's not gonna be there? I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know what? Something that occurs to me from Rasani fairs is they have a memorial table.
Mhm.
That could be
Yeah.
an interesting thing to consider to dedicate some space and therefore some mind space to others who may be foots in other dimensions that
Yeah,
we
we've
knew
had
at
others
one time.
pass. Yeah, we've had
Yeah.
others pass the last few months. Yeah. Hmm. Well, we've got about 15 minutes left tonight. So yeah, anything else you're wanting to ask? Now's the time.
Yeah, ask or share or any thoughts on anything, about your practice, what you want to practice, what you're working on, anything.
And I'm still just so surprised that we started off today with you asking about monad. I'm like, not at all what I expected.
Yeah, right. Or if you have some feedback so far about what you liking about this, not liking, what you want more of, less of, because this is going to just keep evolving. And so your feedback's going to help us shape it.
Yeah, like any questions on techniques or what do you do about this or how does that work or anything.
Jess, yeah, go ahead.
I know I already asked the question, but can I ask another
Yeah,
one?
go ahead.
Just curious if you have recommendations or classes. I feel like I end up being an intuitive for other people, and then when it comes to myself, it's like very hit or miss. But for bigger decisions, it's harder. I know that I hear that's a common thing with practitioners because we're invested, we have the conflict of interest in our own destiny. But just curious if you have any. Is it possible to? I took a bunch of classes so I wouldn't be so dependent on others. And then I'm like, oh, well, now I'm just giving a lot of free, very intuitive advice to others, and I really wanted it for myself. So just curious if classes or anything you recommend.
Well, I have an idea about something that's not a class. Maybe part of your pathway is to share your gifts with other people and become one of the practitioner community and have more of these conversations like this with lots of us all the time. And it's a way that we share with each other. So it's a way that you're not actually always paying for sessions, but you give to others and you receive. Right? If you have gifts and you're able to share gifts with others, maybe that's a pathway.
Thank you.
And I think the more you practice, the better you'll get. And I think that's easier to get more clear for yourself too, because you're having to get more neutral for working with people all the time. So it does make it easier to get neutral with yourself. Of course, still blind spots. I totally have stuff, right? All the time. But it's like I get better and better.
Here's a thing you can try though, because I was just thinking about this in terms of healing, and that if I want to work on myself sometimes and I can't always like work on myself because of, I have beliefs or energy blocks or whatever, what I will do is I will actually like separate part of my energy system into like a separate entity and work on the spiritual part of me, not on the physical body. So then, like, all the beliefs and stuff are still with the body and not with the spirit part of me. And then once I do all the healing on the spirit part and then I integrate it back in. So if you want to try to do readings on yourself, like just as an experiment, just to see if it works, like see if you can kind of treat yourself as if you're a separate person, like you're reading for a client, but it's actually you, and just see what you get. I mean, it'd be interesting to see if it works. I mean, I've never tried that, but I can do it as a healer, but I don't know if I could do it as a reading. So that might be something to experiment with.
And I have my own cards and I pull cards for myself sometimes and I end up sticking my tongue out at the cards basically. Just like I know some other trying to remember that will yell at the guides. Really? You have
Yeah, I've done that. Yeah,
yeah, draw one set of cards, like, draw another set of cards, same basic thing. Like, okay.
right. And just that example, like if you pull cards for yourself or if you ask for confirmation to show up for you in different ways, that's another way that you can get guidance. And sometimes we don't get the answer that we want to hear. It's like, oh man, I don't want to do that. Okay. And they'll say, all right, fine. Don't do it. See what happens. When spirit, that little nudge, that little voice, whatever you want to call it, I always regret it if I don't pay attention. Um, get out to my truck, ready to go. Spirit's like, hey, you want to go back in and get that XYZ thing? I'm like, I'm already in my truck. And that's my thing also is like, I hate to double back on something that I've already completed. So they're like, okay, have it your way. I get to the place where I'm going and it's like, blankety blank, 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 blank. Should have went back in and got that XYZ. Fine. So lesson learned. So it's it just because we're here talking about this stuff doesn't mean that we still don't have our own little hiccups and running into doors and stuff. It still happens because we're constantly evolving, and so something else will come up and we'll be challenged. Um, and then we get those growth opportunities. Hey,
Yeah,
No,
that's
look at
one
this
way of
little,
calling them. Yeah.
yeah, right. Got
but
this little spiffy for you here. Yeah,
yeah, Jess, you
no.
want to use whatever way you tune in best to know
Yeah.
when something's aligned and not aligned. Right. So I definitely get messages in my body. So
Mhm,
you energetically from your little teeny photo, seem very different than me.
mhm,
So yours is going to be a much more energetic awareness, maybe, or like it might be the way you're able to see the world around you. There's something shifts in your visual field, but there's some way that you can tell when you're like in alignment and when you're not.
mhm.
So you being more attuned to whatever that is for you and your way of picking things up is a way to know.
Thank you
I,
all.
yeah, I find developing an internal yes, no. Some people use a pendulum, pull a card, but I will ask myself yes, no. Um, and I practice on that way back in the beginning just because I wanted to have a yes, no. Um, so like I'm waiting for something, whatever, and it's like, oh, I feel them coming. I think they're going to be here. yes, no. It's like, yes, and then they show up. Um, I've got somebody wants to go do XYZ. Yes, no. No, okay. Um, so that's helpful, and that's something that I do for myself to sometimes be able to navigate things.
Yeah, I use muscle testing for stuff like that. You know, if I need a yes or no, I just use muscle testing. It's just easiest for me. Any other
See, we all have
questions?
our own way of doing it. Yeah.
Any other questions? Last call.
There's no right or wrong questions. There's no stupid questions.
And if you have ideas of things you'd like us to talk about in the future one too, go ahead and share those.
Yeah.
Can anyone ask a question at this point or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
You can ask general
Okay.
questions throughout the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, I was having a strong feeling like I should move like somewhere in Oregon and now I'm like second guessing it. So like it's just hard to know sometimes. Like you know what I mean? Like you think you know or you think you're have a good thought and then it's like it's always changing and the world's always changing like and we're changing. So it's just like I feel like I could just forever wonder if I should move and then not move. And then wonder if I should stay. And I don't know. It's just a funny thing.
You know, it kind of
I
could be
get stuff.
seasonally too. Hmm?
Yeah. No, I
Mm,
was gonna say like when I'm in that position, that basically tells me like don't do anything.
yeah.
Because what happens is that the definitive answer has not been determined yet,
Mhm.
and that if you move one way or another, you could actually make things worse. So
Yeah.
for me, it's just like just stand still, and the choice will become obvious, and it usually does. And you know I'm impatient normally, so I'm always like, come on, now. But really, it's about just stand still, take a breath, just, you know, status quo for the moment. And then when the moment when the decision becomes clear, it becomes crystal clear. Like there is no other choice. That's your option. It'll
Yeah,
show up just like that. That's how it works for me.
that makes
So it's
sense.
just a matter of just waiting it out.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, it's a privilege to move, like to have first and last month's rent and the ability to, rent a U-Haul or something like it's huge.
Mhm.
Like I just feel like maybe it's just not in the stars, but who knows? I
Well,
just don't want to get stuck in negative loops of thinking because I feel like we create our reality that way, you know?
yeah, we
And
do.
and I feel like for me, for you, like there could be something seasonally and context. Like a few months ago, the time of year was different and the
Mm,
political climate was a little different. And like they're just it's kind of winter hunker down season in some ways, you
hmm.
know? So it might not be right now, and it doesn't mean to not go.
Yeah.
I guess the
Yeah,
other thing too, I just want to say, we talked about like reading for ourselves is hard. You're someone that I know well, right? So it could be harder for me to read clearly for you because I know you so well too.
Hmm.
Those kinds of things can come up.
yeah, that's the thing. When I read for somebody that I know really well, like I purposely like separate my energy from them so that I can get a cleaner read. Because if
Mm.
not, yeah, like, because I know them so our energies mesh so much, then I'm like, wait, am I reading you or am I reading myself? So I have to purposely like separate our energies so that I can get a cleaner read on somebody.
Hmm.
And I can do that even with people that I like. I mean, I may not know them very well, but I like their energy so much. Like we resonate so closely that I'm just like, I need to separate or I'm not going to be able to read that person because I'm just going to be reading myself or I'm going to be reading somebody entirely different if I don't do that.
Hmm. Interesting.
And when you're not sure, you can just say, okay, divine universe, guides, whoever. Um, I'm not sure about this, so I'm just gonna sit with it, and trust that you will show me what my next step is, or I will know what my next step is. And just allow yourself to have that space, like Kai talked about. You don't have to make a choice. We do get impatient with process. We want to know what's going to happen so that we can feel more in control and be prepared for this next thing that's coming. But if we can stay open, then more possibilities can show up instead of like we only going to recognize it in this little shape.
Mhm.
So being patient with process, which nobody is, everybody hates it. But my analogy is if you bake a cake, if you open the door on that oven every 5 minutes to see what the cake is doing, you're not going to have much of a cake in a half an hour. You're going to have a pretty, not something that you want to eat.
You
So
know,
yeah, being patient with process,
I think
and
part of that
putting it out.
too.
Yeah,
I
go
said
ahead.
looking to see like where does your energy and interest go? So if you're living your life here, does your energy and
Mhm,
interest keep going back to that? Like it
mhm,
doesn't feel like an addictive, grabby thing that you can't let it go, but like that's really where your energy is going. And if that's what's happening, then that's a message.
mhm,
I guess I just want to think about the bigger picture. Like the world is huge. Like it's not even like there's two choices. There's
Mhm.
like a plethora of like if I really open myself up to possibilities.
That's right. And
Yeah.
there's a place in the center of Oregon that you were looking at that to me feels really resonant with your energy. And that's an easy, gentle place to be. So to me, I'm so curious if you do go, how that goes. The
Mm.
place in the north maybe is a little harsher, like that area is just going through some challenges right now. But yeah, in the center, that just totally feels really interesting to me.
Mhm.
So yeah. So now I want to get my ideas of what's interesting affecting your life. So, yeah.
mhm.
And I would be sad to have you not be as present in my life, but I want what's good for you.
Well, thank you.
Daniel.
Yeah, Daniel's got something else.
If we're done with different topic.
Vi, are you finished? Do you feel ready? Yeah, and we're just here at the end, so go ahead. Just probably our last question.
Well, this isn't a question. This is more in response to sort of requesting ideas or that sort of thing
Yeah, sure.
with a new project. And this may not be the style that MeWe would relate to, but it's very much how I'm designed to operate in the world, is in-group activities, which is to have sort of a coalescing pause beginning to things. Because I did hear that there's some sense of where the group energy takes us. So what works really well for me, I'm designed to live this way, is when groups come together to allow an initial time to come together, to deepen individually, and then opening into on inner planes whatever group consciousness wants to form and participate. It, some people get very ceremonial about it and have lots of words, and my background is more to be less words and more doing it to
Almost like
allow a
a group
co.
med.
Yes, though that can get into directiveness, and it's more a matter of deepening into what's true before we start to go into concepts and words and directions, just so that we are more sourcing ourselves from some more authentic place and less, there's so much information in the world. What information are we tapping into? It's more like that approach works well for me because it helps me be closer to my core so that what I participate with is more true to who I am and less swayed by all the information in the world that's flowing around. So anyway, I just thought, oh, that's not something that MeWe does much, is of kind of specific starts to events and closures to events in this fashion I'm talking about. And it may not work. It's just more you were asking for suggestions. I thought, well, we're at my world. That's how I would structure it.
That's great. I did an authentic relating circle this morning, and that's how we start out. It's more like that, is a directive suggestion of how, and it's different each time. It is more that way. And yeah, you're right. It's totally not how we've done MeWe things.
But
Yeah.
Daniel, I can't speak for everybody else, but I did do that before we sat down to do this panel. I said, okay, Spirit, here I am. Let me serve. This thing is new. I'm just going to be open to what needs to come through. So
And Daniel's kind of suggesting doing that as the group and having the group coalesce and the group.
Right.
That's a personal practice that I do regardless, but to actually do that where the group agrees to that as a process is kind of a rare treat for me and something I miss.
And Daniel would be a good person to lead those kinds of experiences too. Does Daniel do that?
I will consider that.
That's great. That's great. Oh, by the way, we got some comments just on Facebook Live too that everything we talked about today really resonated. So other people just sharing those kinds of things. Yeah, that they're enjoying listening.
Great.
All right. Well, I think this is our first experience of Cosmic Conversations. Thanks everyone so much for being here today and exploring this new format with us. We will gather and swirl and coalesce our energies around this and see where we are going to go for our next opportunity. Is there anything else anyone wants to share on the way out? I see people's energies just coming up towards the camera and stuff. Yeah, if anyone wants to share anything from the audience too before we say goodbye.
Yeah, and if you guys have any other comments that come up later, any ideas or any things that surfaces at later point, like, send Lorelei an email, post it on Facebook, whatever. And, we'll take a look at those and, look at those for future topics or, answer future questions or whatever. So, if it comes up later, definitely post it. We want to know what those are.
Thank you
And
so
also,
much for all your time.
mm,
Oh,
I was
you're
just going to
welcome.
say the same thing back to everybody else. Thank you for being here with us and participating in this new experiment. Very much appreciate that.
Yeah,
Ah.
thank you for bringing your energy and your ideas and your questions. And
Yeah, and just your energy. I mean, I think that's what makes the difference is like everybody just brought their own energy and was willing to share that with everybody. So thank you for that. Really
Mhm.
appreciate it.
great, yeah, we got hearts bubbling up in that. Yeah, thank you so much. All right. Well, we will get
Bye.
all of I guess, and so more of these experiences will be listed at MeWeFairs.com. Thanks everyone for
Right.
joining.
Thanks.